Hi and welcome to CFO Conversations. I'm Paula Kensington and today I've got Sue Rosen with me and we're talking about some positioning. And I guess what I mean by positioning is thinking about yourself and where you are in terms of your sphere of influence, if you like. Again, it's not something perhaps everyone's thinking about in their corporate careers as CFOs. But it's certainly something that people should start thinking about and getting prepared and ready for. Again, it's people that are running their own businesses get this a lot easier because it's how they win business. So if you think about yourself as a CFO, as a finance leader, it's about your audience, it's about winning respect and gaining influence. And I think in our minds as corporate finance leaders, we need to think in a bigger growth mindset, and we hear this a lot from startups and again SME type businesses, but it's about how to think bigger and have that growth mindset. So what do you think?
Yeah, and I think it can be enormously helpful to really broaden our networks around the organisation, to look at moves out of the finance function. So some of the most successful finance people I've worked with are the ones, well, like you, Paula, who have taken parts of their career, sometimes what seemed like a sideways move at the time, into working with a sales function or an operational role out of that strict finance function. And this comes to the heart of business partnering and building that bigger picture of the organisation as a whole.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think as the role of CFO has really changed and really grown in the last 5 years, as we've both seen. And it's around being that business partner, but thinking around the whole of business, you know, and as you said, rightly so, getting involved in areas outside of finance really grows your mindset as a CFO. Something that I've really been involved in technology businesses around, you know, the sales team, as you mentioned, but also delivery. So thinking about projects, and you can bring that CFO mindset in because you're still in that governance and compliance and making sure that, you know, we've ticked the boxes as far as are we delivering the right value to the customer, but is the customer paying for what we're delivering as well? And I've seen in a number of different challenges in businesses where we give away lots of revenue, and you know it doesn't take long for that to end badly for business. And so there's your CFO hat, but bring that COO hat with you and say, you know, what does the customer want and how are we servicing the customer? And I guess that's not really something that a CFO's thought about before in the eyes of a customer.
No, which is of course why it can be so beneficial, and just that diversity of thought. So it is about having the people from sales, from marketing, from delivery, from technology and finance around the table is actually what can be so beneficial, because the question that you think is stupid because you haven't got the experience that the person next to you does might be the breakthrough to something new.
Yeah. I think positioning now is about who you are, what your experience is, what your credibility is, but also then link it into, so why should I care? You know, make it tangible for the audience. And if that's an internal audience, that's as powerful as an external audience anyway. But you know, what skill set, what value add have you got that's going to help that situation so that people actually, you know, you become more visible. And I've spoken about that in a previous conversation that we had about your sphere of influence and the scale of visibility that you have. So becoming above the horizon where people can see you and you start adding value, and then that becomes exponentially stronger and more powerful in terms of your role as a CFO, or if you've got higher aspirations to be a CEO, you know, that really helps in that journey.
Yeah, and I would say that working as a senior leadership team, individually on what your strengths are, but then as a leadership team working on the whole of business approach. And that will be core to making those moves, and building those relationships with those people is core to putting yourself in that position, starting to talk about what is the purpose of this organisation.
Yeah, and again, it's something that the CFO is now helping to drive, certainly in my experience. So if you're not getting good at positioning, then you need to get good at it. And I think you talked about stakeholder mapping, you know, being able to use frameworks and models that are out there very easily to see about how to think about your key stakeholders and how do they like to be communicated with and what are their challenges and how best to influence them. But as you said previously, what about the people that you haven't already got a relationship with? How do you build those relationships? So I think positioning, if you're not doing it, then really, you're missing a trick and we really need to start. So thanks, Sue, for that. That's great.
Thanks.